Today we will review End Use Certification, which effective November 25th, 2020, is one of the required documents for voluntary buyout or acquisition programs using HUD CDBG DR funds. A hyperlink to the End Use Certification can be found on the Texas General Land Office website at recovery.texas.gov. To locate the document, go to the local buyout and acquisition program page, which is linked below in the description section of this video. Scroll down to the End Use Information section and click on the End Use Certification link. Once you click on the link, your computer will download the fillable document. Please note, you will need Microsoft Word to view and edit the document. Activities under the CDBG DR Local Buyout and Acquisition Program are required to design and meet final disposition and end-use goals to support the national objective of the project. The final disposition of the property and end use should be outlined in the subrecipient's program guidelines, and documentation is required to be on file demonstrating that the end use has been met and will continue to be met for the timeframe outlined in the guidelines. The required end use and disposition of the property is different for buyout programs and acquisition programs. Local Buyout Program End Use. As a requirement of acquiring property through a buyout program, there are limited final end uses for which a subrecipient may designate after buyout has occurred. Any property acquired, accepted, or from which a structure will be removed pursuant to the project will be dedicated and maintained in perpetuity for a use that is compatible with open space, recreational, or floodplain and wetlands management practices. A deed restriction must be placed on the property to ensure this end use. As part of the condition of converting and maintaining property as open space, no new structures may be erected on the property acquired, accepted, or from which a structure was removed under the buyout program other than a public facility that is open on all sides and functionally related to a designated open space, e.g. a park, campground, or outdoor recreation area, a restroom, or a flood control structure, provided that the structure does not contribute to a flood hazard and the local floodplain manager approves in writing before the commencement of the construction of the structure. If a subrecipient plans to undertake eligible activities listed above on buyout properties, the eligible activities should be outlined in the program guidelines. Prior to committing to an alternate use, subrecipients should review open space requirements at 44 CFR Part 80.19 Land Use and Oversight. Subrecipients are encouraged to request additional technical assistance if they intend to do anything other than maintain the property as green space. After receipt of the assistance, with respect to any property acquired, accepted, or from which a structure was removed under the buyout or relocation program, no subsequent application for additional disaster assistance for any purpose or to repair damage or make improvements of any sort will be made by the owner of the buyout property, including subsequent owners, to any federal entity in perpetuity. Subrecipients should identify all final disposition options related to the buyout properties. While subrecipients are responsible for acquiring the properties through the buyout program and ensuring the end-use requirements are met through deed restrictions, subrecipients can undertake the following options when disposing of buyout properties, including retain and maintain the property per the requirements associated with a buyout program, convert the land to green space, lease the property to adjacent property owners or other parties in return for a maintenance agreement. The subrecipient is required to place a deed restriction or covenant dedicating the property to be maintained for compatible uses in perpetuity as discussed above. Donate a property to a conservation land trust who, as part of its mission efforts related to restoring the natural functions of the floodplain, and/or sell the acquired property at fair market value. However, the proceeds will be classified as program income and must be returned to the state. Additionally, if the subrecipient acquired the property as part of a buyout, the subrecipient will be required to place a deed restriction or covenant dedicating the property to be maintained for compatible uses in perpetuity as discussed above. If the sale of the buyout properties generates proceeds greater than $35,000 in a calendar year, it is considered program income. All program income shall be returned to the Texas GLO to be reused for additional housing recovery efforts. Buyout end use monitoring. Subrecipients are responsible for the ownership, monitoring, and maintenance of buyout properties. Regardless of the entity or individuals who are the end owners of the buyout properties, the subrecipient retains ultimate monitoring responsibility related to ensuring the property and future landowners comply with all applicable restrictions. Subrecipients may convey responsibilities through deed restrictions, contracts, and other legal agreements, but ultimately, the subrecipients are responsible for ensuring compliance. Acquisition for redevelopment, end use, and final disposition. Properties purchased under an acquisition for redevelopment program are eligible for redevelopment in the future in a resilient manner to protect future occupants of the property. The acquired property must continue to meet one of CDBG program's national objectives and eligible activities for at least 5 years. The post-purchase disposition of most acquired properties is subject to certain limitations and requirements and CDBG DR eligible activities and national objectives. But subrecipients have flexibility within these parameters to redevelop the properties in a way that best serves the goals of the community and in a manner that is in line with the community's long-term recovery plan. Using CDBG DR funding for acquisitional loan without achieving a final eligible disposition of the acquired property is not eligible. Therefore, it is critical for subrecipients to plan and ensure the funding and resources are in place to be able to achieve final disposition within the required program timelines and deadlines. Subrecipients should have a clear understanding and intended use for properties prior to implementing the program, and eligible final uses of the acquired properties must be outlined in the subrecipient's program guidelines. It is recommended for subrecipients to have all funding sources, project partners, and plans for final disposition in place prior to launching the program and going to closing on an eligible property. Within the program guidelines, subrecipients should tie the final use of the acquired properties to their long-term community development or recovery plans, should outline the timelines for achieving final disposition, and should demonstrate why it is necessary and reasonable to develop in at-risk areas. Subrecipients must identify whether the properties will be sold at fair market value or be redeveloped into affordable rental housing, public facilities, public services facilities, commercial development, or meet other CDBG DR eligible activities and national objectives. The end use on the acquired property must ensure that the property continues to meet one of the CDBG program's national objectives for at least 5 years. The national objective for the acquisition of property under an acquisition for redevelopment program is tied to the end use of the property, not to the household selling the property. Some of the examples of national objectives and eligible activities that will compliantly meet end use and final disposition of property requirements are provided in the following tables. Low or moderate income housing. Development of affordable rental housing with a minimum of 5 years affordability. Development is subject to all new construction elevation, green building standards, broadband, and all other applicable compliance standards. Flood insurance must be maintained on properties in perpetuity if located in the special flood hazard areas. Low or moderate income area. Development of a public infrastructure facility that serves an LMI residential area, such as development of a grocery store that serves an LMI residential area. Development is subject to all new construction elevation and green building standards and all other compliance requirements as applicable. Flood insurance must be maintained on a property in perpetuity if located in the special flood hazard area. Low or moderate income job creation. Development of a small business that will create new jobs where at least 51% of the jobs are held or made available to LMI persons. Development is subject to all new construction elevation and green building standards and all other compliance requirements as applicable. Flood insurance must be maintained on the property in perpetuity if located in the special flood hazard area. Urgent need. Development of a project that is eligible but does not meet one of the LMI requirements of directly or indirectly benefiting at least 51% LMI persons. Sale at fair market value. Acquired property is sold at fair market value, which includes sale at public auction or for current appraised value, as determined by a licensed appraiser. All properties redeveloped as part of the CDBG-DR Acquisition for Redevelopment Program are subject to the following requirements. Compliance with all applicable CDBG-DR and cross-cutting federal requirements. Record a deed restriction or covenant requiring flood insurance to be maintained in perpetuity on all properties that are in the special flood hazard area. Place an affordability covenant on the deed. New construction of a single-family home from 1 to 4 units must have a minimum of 5 years affordability covenant. Properties of 5 or more units must have a 20-year affordability covenant. Elevation standards, green building standards, housing quality standards, local code requirements, broadband infrastructure and multifamily housing, resilient home building standards, and accessibility and visitability requirements. Subrecipients are required to ensure that the end use and final disposition meets all of these requirements and to monitor the properties for compliance and eligibility with all the federal and program final uses, to include, but not limited to the long-term monitoring of meeting a national objective, e.g. affordability, housing term, and job creation requirements, and construction standards. The End Use Certification Form was created to assist subrecipients in documenting the end use and final disposition of their properties being bought out and acquired in the program, and to ensure a detailed plan is in place to achieve, maintain, and monitor the end use. The End Use Certification Form should be completed for each acquired property, and such form should be retained in the associated project file. All documentation supporting this plan should be attached to the form and placed in the file. For this video, we'll use an example of a fictional applicant and location to explain how to complete the End Use certification. The first section in this form is for the subrecipient to fill out with the program information. The subrecipient will first input the funding source related to the program. For example, it could be Hurricane Harvey, 2016 floods, MIT, etc. For our example, the program is the General Land Office Hurricane Harvey Local Buyout and Acquisition Program, so the funding source is Hurricane Harvey. Next, the subrecipient will input the federal award number. This is the award number that was used on the Federal Assistance SF-424 form. If the number cannot be located on the SF-424, it is also located on the first page of the GLO contract. On the next line, the subrecipient will input their name. Then the subrecipient will input their contract number with the GLO. Finally, the subrecipient will input the service area and project name. For this example, the project name we are using is Rango County Local Buyout Program. The service area is the target buyout or acquisition area that was identified in the subrecipient's housing guidelines. Then the form describes the end-use requirements for buyout and acquisition programs. See the slides in the introduction section of this video for more information. The second section of the form is for the subrecipient to fill in information about the project and national objective to be met. The subrecipient must document how each program and/or activity funded under the program meets the requirements of the national objective. In addition, all properties within this contiguous area must be identified by address. Subrecipients should input details about the need for the program. Subrecipients should explain their long-term community development or recovery plans and how the chosen end use and disposition of the program will assist in meeting that plan. If completing an acquisition for redevelopment program, subrecipients should input information on why it is reasonable and necessary to redevelop in an at-risk area. For our example, the fictitious program wrote, "On August 23, 2017, Hurricane Harvey came towards Texas and stalled for 3 days, making this a huge rain event. Multiple neighborhoods were flooded, people's homes were flooded, and some people had to be rescued by boats and helicopters. As part of this weather system, over 100 homes were destroyed by heavy flooding in the city of Enterprise. The city of Enterprise is located 30 miles inland from Alaska, Texas, due west. Enterprise sits near the marshland areas in a low-lying area and is susceptible to a history of flooding. Over the past 15 years, homes in that area have suffered at least 5 flood events. These homes were damaged beyond repair and had to be condemned. As part of the Rango County Local Buyout Program, the county bought out 10 homeowners in the city of Enterprise in the service area listed above that lost their homes during this federally declared disaster event. Of the 10 homeowners, 7 are low to moderate income, LMI households that will meet the LMI national objective, and 3 are urgent need households that will meet the urgent need national objective by responding to this disaster-related impact. Our goal in the voluntary buyout program is to remove the affected homeowners from harm's way. The program sought to voluntarily buy out as many contiguous parcels as possible to ensure that no future home is built in this at-risk area. The program completed a pre-storm appraisal on each home and paid the homeowner the pre-storm appraisal amount. Once the buyout was complete, the flood-damaged homes were demolished, all debris removed, and the land was leveled and graded. The property will be held into perpetuity so that nothing can ever be built on the property again. The property will be owned and maintained by Rango County. Without the assistance of this program, the condemned homes would have remained in the community for an extended period of time, causing health and safety risks to the community. Our focus and need was to have these homes demolished prior to the next hurricane season to prevent excessive amounts of flying debris during another event and/or prevent potential fires of destroyed homes which can spread to other areas of our community. In addition, we were concerned about potential health hazards to the community with the increase of disease-carrying rodents. In the next section, End Use, the subrecipient should provide a robust description of the end use that is being met through the program. The end use being met through the program should match with the project description needs and goals described in the project description section above. The end use section will describe what the end use is, how the program has met the end use, how the program will monitor or ensure the end use is being met long-term, and monitor the end use. This section should also describe in detail the final disposition of the property. For our example, the fictitious program wrote, "The Rango County Local Buyout Program is meeting the end use of converting the acquired properties into open space for perpetuity. Rango County has ensured the end use is met long-term by placing a deed restriction on the properties. The deed restriction states, the property shall be dedicated and maintained in perpetuity as open space for the conservation of natural floodplain functions. No new structures may be erected on the property other than a public facility that is open on all sides and functionally related to a designated open space, e.g. a park, campground, or outdoor recreation area. A restroom or a flood control structure provided that the structure does not contribute a flood hazard and the local floodplain manager approves in writing before the commencement of the construction of the structure. No federal entity or source may provide disaster assistance for any purpose with respect to the property, nor may any application for such assistance be made to any federal entity or source. The property is not eligible for coverage under the NFIP for damage to structures on the property occurring after the date of the property settlement, except for pre-existing structures being relocated off property as a result of the project. Rango County will own and maintain the property for a period of no less than 5 years to ensure the continued end use is met. If after 5 years the county sells or leases the property, it will be deed restricted, and the county will monitor the property every 3 years, ensuring compliance with the restriction. In Section 4, subrecipients should check off all documentation attached. Documentation should be attached to demonstrate that the end use and final disposition has been met and will continue to be met long-term. If any other types of documentation are attached, please specify what type of documentation has been added in the box. For our example, the Buyout Program attached photos of the completely demolished and degraded property as green space. They also attached a copy of the deed restriction maintaining the property as green space in perpetuity. Finally, the elected official of the subrecipient will print their name, title, sign, and date the signature section of the form. With this signature, the subrecipient is certifying the above information and requirements. We hope you enjoyed this training on the end use certification. If there are any additional questions during the completion of the form, subrecipients should reach out to their General Land Office grant manager. Additional videos covering the other required local buyout and acquisition forms are or will soon be available at the same location you are viewing this one.